Okay, so this is section 1, 2, the first half for geometry. So a point is indicates a location, and it doesn't have size, and we name points using a capital letter. So this is point A. A line is represented by a straight path that extends in two opposite directions without end and has no thickness. A line contains infinitely many points. So a line is named by 2 points, and it goes on forever in both directions. So this is line AB with the arrow above it. We could also name it BA with the arrows above it. Sometimes also it will be named with a lower case letter, so this is also line L. A plane, you can picture that like a piece of paper. A plane is a flat surface that extends without end and has no thickness. So sometimes planes are named with one letter in the corner. Plane, so this one is plane P. We can also name it using any 3 points on the plane. So this is also called plane ABC. You don't do anything above it to name a plane. Points that are on the same line are called collinear points, and points that are on the same plane are called coplanar points. Just in the same way that if you were a co-captain for a team, you share the role of being the captain, you have the same role. Points that are collinear share a line, sharing the line, and points that are on the same plane are coplanar, and they share the plane. Okay, if we look at QT, which is right here, we can also call it TQ just by switching the letters. And there's also the little letter down here, M. We can also call it M. If we look at plane P, so it's labeled in the lower corner, plane P, another way we can name it is using the points R, Q, and V. So R, Q, V would name it. And also we could use R, S, and V. That would also name the plane. Three names of collinear points. So those are points that are on the same line. We can look at points R, Q, and S. And then 4 points that are coplanar, that are on the same plane, are R, Q, S, and V. Okay, now if we move down to the got it questions. 2 other ways to name RS. Well, we can first just switch the letters. So SR. Make sure we have our line with our arrows on top. Also, if we look at RS, there's also the point Q on there. So another one that we could use would be RQ. And make sure we have our lines above it. Okay. 2 more ways to name the plane P. We could name it, we just switch some of the letters up from above. Q, V, R. We could also name it V, S, Q. Okay, the names of 3 other collinear points. Before we looked at points R, Q, and S. If we look at line M, we can see that T, Q, and N are collinear. They're all on this line right here. And then 2 points that are not coplanar, which means they're not on the same plane as R, S, and V, are points T and N. Since that line M is piercing the plane, like if you stuck a pencil in stabbed it into a piece of paper. Okay, one other definition here. Space is a set of all points in 3 dimensions. So the space in the room, the space in outer space, space in a drawer in a cupboard, that is all space that contains 3-dimensional points. Okay, a segment is part of a line, so a line goes on forever. A segment is when you choose 2 points on that line and you just take that little piece. So a line segment has 2 endpoints. So here we have segment AB, and you can name it AB with a line above, or you could switch the order around BA. Notice that there's not any arrows on the lines above it. A ray has 1 endpoint and then goes on forever on the other direction. So here we have ray AB, and you can see that we write AB. Notice that above the A, there isn't an arrow, and above the B, there is an arrow. That's because A is the endpoint, and it goes on forever past B. You could also write it BA as long as you still have, let me move that. You could also write it BA as long as the endpoint is still above A. That's not the way we usually write that, but that is okay. Usually we want the endpoint on the left. And then opposite rays are a special case of rays. These rays share the same endpoint and form a line because they go the opposite directions. So here we have ray CB, I'll put in red, and then in this yellowish orange, I'll put ray CA. Do you see how they meet together at that one point, at point C? I picture them shaking hands and then heading opposite directions. So opposite rays do not overlap ever, and there's not ever a gap between them. And when we're naming opposite rays, you should look for 3 points on a line. And that middle point will be where they meet up. Notice in writing them over here that the arrows are with the A and with the B, and wherever there's a C, there isn't an arrow because that is an endpoint. Okay, here are a few problems we can do. What are the names of the segments in the figure at right? So, we have DE in red. In yellow, we have EF. And all of these you can switch the order of their letters to name them. And then we also, I'll put it in blue, have DF. I'm just going to put it below it so you can see that. DF, which takes both of those. Okay, I'm going to clear that off though so we can do the next one. So what are the rays in the figure? Rays are determined by their endpoint and the direction that they go. So if we look at DE, endpoint D, if I can color it, and then going on forever, DE is also the same as DF because it has the same endpoint still and it goes on forever in the same direction. So they look different when we write them out with letters, but they are exactly the same ray. I could take green and mark ray ED. I'll switch to purple for EF. So starting at E and going towards F. And then we have another one that has 2 names, which I'll do in red. DF, starting at D, going out towards F. DF is the same thing. Oh, sorry, we already did that one. FD this time so I need to start at F and go towards D. FD is the same thing as FE because it's going through the point E. They both have the end point F and go in the same direction. Now if we can see my picture here, the one in the green and the one in the purple, make the green one a little more visible, those are opposite rays. They share the endpoint E, and they go off in opposite directions. They shake hands at E and walk their opposite ways. Now I'm going to redraw down here so that I don't have to erase everything there, what my picture above is. So I have F here, E in the middle, and D here. I'm going to take a color. We'll do green for EF. So EF is in green, and I'll take purple for FE. And our got it question asks, are they opposite rays? Well, these rays go in opposite directions, that's true, but they overlap. They don't meet at one point and shake hands. So these are not opposite rays. Here's our lesson check. We'll just do 1, 2, 4, and 5. So what are two other names for the line XY? Well, I can switch it around, make it YX, still with my arrows above. That's just switching the name. If I look on that line though, the point R is also still on it. So I could call it RX, and I could call it XR, I could call it YR, RY. There's a lot of more names that I could call it. Okay. What are the opposite rays? So I'm going to look for a line that has 3 points on it. This one right here does. So I'm going to look at that one. And remember, I want to use that middle point as my end point. So I'm going to take RX, and to name that, I'm going to say RX. My end point is at R, and my arrow needs to be with X. So there's my name for RX. This right here is my name. And then my other ray is RY, with the end point at R and the arrows going off towards the X and to the Y. Oh, okay. Number 4. A segment has endpoints R and S. Draw it up here. R and S. What are two names for the segment? Well, we can name it RS with a line. There's no arrows on this one because we're talking about a segment. It has a starting point and an ending point. It doesn't go on forever. We can call it RS, and we can also call it SR. And then our last question, are the rays AB and ray BA the same ray? So they're wondering, are those just two different names for it? Is it the same ray and we're just calling it two different things? Well, here, I'll draw it out down here. A and B. That's what ray AB looks like. My end point is at A, and it goes on forever towards B. And if I'll draw it below it. BA this one is not the same because it has an endpoint at B and goes on forever towards A. So these are not the same ones. These are different rays. If we wanted them to be the same, here's my eraser just a second. If I wanted to start with the B and have them be the same rays, so BA, I still need my endpoint to be at A and my arrow to be going towards B. Those are the same rays. Those are the same ways, but the ones they gave us were not. And there's your homework.